Let's talk the cup. One more thing, like, subscribe, and share. Come on, let's talk the cup. Woo!
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Cutler here on the Let's Talk to Cutler broadcast, the Let's Talk to Cutler YouTube channel, the Let's Talk to Cutler virtual book club, the vlog, and all of that. And do you all realize it's 3 years now that I've been here on this platform and we've been sharing this space, and I am so thankful for the journey. I'm going to do something a little later this month to just celebrate the fact that we've been doing this for 3 years now, and what a joy it has been to me. I hope I've been as inspirational and motivational to you as you have been to me. I have enjoyed these 1800 seconds on these Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if someone is just stopping by for the very first time and they're wondering, what is that guy talking about? What is the purpose of his channel? What is he doing here? Why is he still here? Anybody remember the movie, What's Love Got to Do with Tina Turner? And as she said, why is she here, Ike? I just think of these random movie quotes from time to time. But if anyone is wondering, why is he still here? It's because we're sharing space and we're talking about inspiring each other. We're talking about how to motivate each other. We're talking about how to challenge each other and how to challenge ourselves to be our best self, even in the worst of situations. It's about how do we show up as my best self, even in the worst of situations. How do I make sure that I've shown up better today than I did yesterday? How do I plan to show up better tomorrow than I did today? It's about making sure that we're on this path, on this trajectory, on this road that's leading to a space that's called nothing else but better. And there's room for all of us on this highway. There's room for all of us in this caravan. So we've been doing it for about 3 years now. We've just been virtually joining hands. We've been virtually joining each other in this ride, virtually joining each other in this caravan, and making sure that we sometimes push each other, making sure that we sometimes pull each other, but we're on our way to this space that's called better. And one of the things that we've realized here is that better does not have to happen 5 weeks from now. It doesn't have to happen 5 years from now or even 5 days from now. But we have discovered that better happens as soon as we conceptualize it. Better happens as soon as we believe it. So we encourage you. Why don't you just come along and join us, get aboard, let's ride, and make sure that you join, make sure that you subscribe. And once you subscribe, go ahead and click the notification bell because it lets you know whenever I've gone live. It lets you know whenever I've uploaded new content. Now, do me a favor, come on over in the chat, because one of the things that I like to do is acknowledge the people who are in the chat. I like to talk to the people who are in the chat. I like for them to talk back to me. But I also like to just shout out the top 3 people who join in the chat sometimes before I do. It's just our way of having a friendly competition to see who's going to join the chat, who's going to hop in the chat first. And I always look at the people that I see in the chat first on my end. So it's never a slight to anybody. If you say, hey, on my end, it looks like I joined the chat first, but I want to shout out what I call the LTTC VIP. So let's talk to a couple of very important people for that night only. Everybody's important to me. They really are. But this is just a fun and games moment that we're having. So let me see if I can just shout out the top 3 people, the first 3 people to join the chat tonight. It looks like they're Tracy Johnson, who says, hey, everyone, good evening. Annie Cutler, who says, get aboard, let's ride. And Paula D, who says, hello, everyone. Well, it's March the 21st. Happy spring. Can you believe we are officially in spring now? We're in that season. Of course, the month of March is still the iffy month. So make sure that you take care of yourselves. Make sure that you watch the weather. Make sure that you get all the weather forecasts so that you can dress accordingly and appropriately. March is that month that is sometimes unpredictable, depending upon where in the states you're living or where in the world you live in. March can be an unpredictable month. So make sure that you take care of yourself. Make sure that you dress accordingly. I want to talk tonight and this evening about how to shift your perspective. And I'll tell you the impetus of that conversation. It started out because I realized that a lot of times we've been talking about on this platform, We've talked about it's all about how you see things. It's all about your perspective. So this whole notion of optimism, this whole notion of positivity, it's really about how you see things. It's about the lens through which you look at things. It is about your point of view. It's about your situated perspective. So I wanted to talk about that because I was thinking, a lot of times we tell people, you've just got to change your perspective. But here again, we don't tell people how to do that. I'm a proponent of making sure that when we tell people to do something, we offer them a model, we offer them a methodology of how they do it. How many of you all can remember growing up, people would say, well, just do such and such and just do such and such. And they never told you how to do it. They never modeled for you how to do it. They never gave you an example of how to do it. But somewhere they had this expectation that you would do the thing they told you to do. Go tie your shoe. Can you at least teach me how to tie my shoe first? Or go clean your room. Well, what does clean mean? What does that look like? Does it mean that I just straighten up? If I have carpet, do I have to vacuum? If I don't have carpet, do I have to mop? What does it mean? Do I just make my bed? Do I have to do laundry? Do I have to fold my clothes? What does that mean? So a lot of times we have been guilty of telling people to do things without modeling for them or telling them exactly, as I often say, what does that look like? So when we talk about being able to be our best selves or become our best selves or show up our best selves, even in the worst of situations. And we've often said sometimes it's about how you look at things, how you see things. It's about shifting your perspective. What I realized that I've been guilty of, you all, is saying to people, you just need to shift your perspective. You need to change your perspective. And I really didn't talk about necessarily how to do that all the time. So I want to talk about that this evening. I want to talk about how to change your perspective. And you all talk to me. Have you ever been guilty of telling people to do something and you just assumed that they knew how to do it? I need to put up both hands because there are times when I've told people, hey, go and do this, or you need to do that, or maybe you should do this, or you might find it helpful to do this. But I didn't necessarily give any guidance, any methodology, any practical or strategies or approaches as to how to do that. And now you may be wondering, well, Cutler, why do I need to change my perspective? Because sometimes the way we respond to life, sometimes I see you all saying, yes, you've done that. Sometimes the way we respond to life is because of the perspective that we might have on a particular subject or on a particular issue. Let me say that again. Sometimes how we respond to life may have something to do with a particular or may have something to do with the perspective that we have on a particular topic or particular issue. Let me give you some examples. I'm just going to name a few controversial issues, a few controversial topics. And I want you to think about whether it makes you cringe or whether or not you have a definite opinion or whether or not you see things one way and you don't see yourself necessarily changing from that perspective. Now, the only thing I'm going to do, you all, is just mention some of these controversial issues. I promise you, I'm not going to have a conversation about them, but I'm just going to mention them because I wonder when I mention these controversial issues, if they bring some sort of preconceived thought or presuppositions in your mind about what you think about them. So let me just name a few topics. And you all you all bear with me as I just name these few topics. All right. All I'm going to do is name the topics. I'm not going to do anything else other than the topics. And I want to see if you have any presuppositions, any predispositions about these particular topics. So I'll say things like abortion, affirmative action, assisted suicide, capital punishment, civil rights, cloning, the death penalty, drug legalization, cross-racial or ethnic adoptions, freedom of speech, gay rights, immigration, minimum wages, plastic surgery, polygamy, race relations, racial profiling, recreational marijuana, sex education, school uniforms, Social Security, vaccines, women's rights. So tell me, I just mentioned those controversial issues. And I'm wondering, did you all have any strong opinions about any of those? I don't necessarily want to know what the opinions are, but I'm just wondering if you had any strong opinions about any of those issues. Because a lot of times, and I bring that up because a lot of times we have a certain perspective, and we don't always stop to tell ourselves, you know what? I do have a strong opinion about some of these issues. I do have a certain perspective on some of these issues. And what does it really mean then? What does it really mean, Cutler, when you talk about changing your perspective? I just threw out those controversial issues because I suggest I suppose that we had some strong opinions about them, but there are many issues in life, many subjects in life, and we have strong opinions. So some of you are saying, yes, yes, I do have strong opinions on some, sure, yes, on several, yes, on most of them, yes, very strong opinions. But currently, I've been questioning some of my opinions. Well, Juanita, we want to talk about that, my friend. I do have opinions on these issues. McDonough said even taxes. All right. Yeah. So what does it mean to change your perspective? Because we know that our perspective is a particular attitude about something. It's your point of view. It's the lens through which we see the world. And when it comes to changing your life for the better, changing your perspective is critical. If you want to change your life, then you need to change the way you look at your life. You need to change the way that you see life. You need to find a new perspective. And what does this mean? It means a lot of times it's changing your attitude, changing your outlook, changing your mindset. That's what it means. It might mean looking at things from a different angle, or trying to see the silver cloud, or trying to see the silver lining in every cloud. But whatever it takes, changing our perspective, you all, is so critical. It's important if we want to make changes in our lives. I dare say we will never make changes in our lives if we can't make changes to the perspective and how we see things in our lives. So I think it's critical. I think it's key. I like what Juanita said. I've been questioning some of my opinions. And so I want us to think about it. Not that I'm trying to sway anybody's opinion. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to invite us to a conversation about how do we change our perspective. Because Cutler, we've been talking about changing our perspective. Sometimes that might make me a more positive person. It might make me a more optimistic person, because maybe I need to change my perspective. But how do I do that? So I'm talking about, how do I change my perspective? Not trying to sway you all to change your perspective on a particular topic. That's not the objective for tonight's conversation. So let's talk about how we do that, because shifting your perspective is not an easy process. It's certainly not an easy process, because it means that you have to evaluate your own perspective. That's why I threw out those controversial issues, because I suspected that we had a perspective on some things, and I wanted to give you all a point of reference. So shifting your perspective means sometimes that you've got to evaluate your own perspective. And what does that look like? What does it mean? It means you have to think about your perspectives and how they've shaped you. I know people who think that women should not be in key leadership roles. And some of them think that women should not be in key leadership roles in secular positions, even in religious positions. A lot of people think that women should not be in key leadership roles. And so then those people who have those thoughts have to really think about how their perspectives have shaped them. So let's talk about that in just a moment. So examining or evaluating your perspective. How have my perspective shaped me? What is it that I think? What is it that I think about some of those controversial issues that Cutler just mentioned? And how have my thoughts shaped and influenced the person that I've become? And as you're evaluating your own perspective, you want to consider the sources of your perspective. Why do I think like this? Why do I believe like this? Why do I have this opinion? Why do I see it from this standpoint, from this vantage point, from this perspective? Why do I see this issue like this? Did I make it up myself? Did I come up with this myself? Was I influenced? Because a lot of times your perspectives form throughout your life. And they form throughout your life based on a number of things, like your family, like your education, like your culture, like your life experiences. Your perspectives are formed based on various factors in your life. Some people believe what they believe because they come from a family that believe that. Some people believe what they believe, or they see things the way they do because of their exposure to certain things, or what their education has taught them, or what their culture reinforces, or what their life experiences have presented to them. So, considering what influences your perspectives really might help you if you're going to try to reformulate, reshape your perspective. Think, why do I believe what I believe about some of those things that Cutler mentioned earlier? Why do I have the opinions that I have? Did I make those opinions? Did I reach those opinions myself? Because we have to ask ourselves that. I dare say at 8, 9, 10, at the ages of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, we were not necessarily researching issues. We were not necessarily researching the background of certain issues, but a lot of times we went based on what our family, what our culture, what our immediate circles said, either to us or around us. And many times, what shaped us then continues to impact us now. What shaped us then continue to impact us now. So we need to consider the sources of our perspectives. Do I believe what I believe? Do I believe like I believe because that's how my grandparents believe? That's how my parents believe? That's how my mentors and teachers believed? And those are the things that they said, and it reinforced, and I took it at face value, and that now affects the person that I've become. Consider the sources of your perspective. I'm not saying that they were right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying consider the sources. And now I want you to really envision your life, envision how your life would be if you change your perspective. This is about evaluating your own perspective. Let me think about what my perspectives are and how they've shaped me. Number one. Number two, let me consider the sources of my perspective. Why do I believe like I believe? Why do I believe the way, the things? Why do I believe it? Who or what influenced me? And then envision how your life would be if you change your perspective. What does that mean, Color? It really means engaging in this whole notion of what if. Because I just want to put this out there, just as an example. For people who may not necessarily think that women should be in key leadership roles, that may very well have impacted or influenced how you encourage your daughter to reach a particular potential. Maybe, just maybe, people who don't think women should be in key leadership roles. And of course, this is part of my tribute to women during Women's History Month. But one of the reasons why some people may not have pushed their daughters to reach their full potential is because they did not necessarily believe that women should be in key leadership positions. So then envision how your life would be if you change your perspective. It is the what if that you have to ask yourself. What if I believe different? Might I have pushed my daughter to go into politics? What if I had believed different? Might I have pushed my daughter to go for that position to become the CEO? What if I believed in politics? Might I have encouraged my daughter to become a leader in her religion, in her respective religion? Might I have done something different? Because this might help you to not only see the benefits of changing your perspective, but it may really begin to change them. So think about it. Part of it is just a matter of evaluating your perspective. And then you all, after evaluating your perspective, you want to consider the perspective of others, analyzing and researching using firsthand information. McDina, I agree with you. I'm just thinking, I'm wondering though about the times when we were of an age when we really did not think about doing that. And it was during those formative years, 8, 19, 11, 12, 13. Many of us, I dare say, did not think about using firsthand information. We didn't think about analyzing or doing research. And by the time we became, so during those ages of 18, 8, 19, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, we didn't think about analyzing or doing any kind of research. And we didn't think about it even after we got in our 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. And we just didn't think about it because now it has become my perspective. So now I'm just offering us the opportunity to think about it because we don't always think about it. I want to become a more positive person, and I want to have a I wonder what if my perspective would have changed on this issue. And you're right, Tracy. Childhood sources, I think, has a lot to do with some of these perspectives. I totally agree with you. I was having a conversation with someone last week, and I was talking about my some of my religious views. Some of my religious views were influenced based on what people said to me, what people taught me. And I did not always, I did not all did not always think about challenging them. Now I was the kind of kid who would sometimes challenge people, but I didn't always challenge people. Marissa says some children decisions were made by school counselor. Yeah, by different authorities, Marissa, you're absolutely right. So one of the things after we evaluate our own perspective, another thing that we then have to do is to consider the perspective of other people. Now, I would encourage us as we consider the perspectives of other people, make sure that we're respectful. I wouldn't necessarily debate, but make sure that you are respectful. Consider the perspective of others. Be objective to at least examine what other people are saying. Step back and say, I hadn't considered that. What I have found in my almost 60 years is that a lot of times when people are sharing their perspectives and we don't necessarily see it from that vantage point, the first thing we would try to do is to defend our perspectives and tear theirs down without giving any kind of credence to the possibility that their perspective might have some validity to it. That's just been my experience, my exposure, that many times our initial and visceral reaction when we hear another's perspective that may not align with ours is that we would tear theirs down and defend ours. Initially, that's what we've done. That's my experience. It may not be your experience. All right. So we're talking about then how to shift your perspective, evaluate your own, then consider the perspective of others, and be respectful. Don't debate in a disrespectful manner, but be open to dialogue. I have and I know several people who have religious views that are not aligned with mine. They have religious views that are not the same of mine. But one of the things that I've learned to do in my adult years that I did not learn in my childhood years, one of the things that I've learned to do is to be open to understanding or trying to understand their perspective or the core or the basis of their religious perspective and their religious convictions. I'm open to that because I believe in the human experience. Dr. Maya Angelou said it, we are more alike than we are different. And I truly believe that. So that keeps me open to hearing the objectives of other people. It does not mean that I necessarily agree with them or that I'm going to take their vantage point, but it simply says that I'm open to hearing. So if I'm open to hearing, that means I'm open to seeing what makes us more alike than we are different so that we can bring peace and civility to the human race. Sidebar, you all. I took a course in Harvard's Divinity School a couple years ago, and it was called Religion, Conflict, and Peace. And in that course, we examine how people look at things from what's called their situated perspectiveness. And many times, the way people look at things, the way people see things, comes from their sense of morality. And morality is what drives religion, or either religion drives morality. And a lot of times, based on our morality, we end up in conflict. Whereas it would make sense that we end up in peace, but we don't. And we don't end up in peace because rather than trying to reach a common denominator or common thread, we strive to defend our situated perspective, because what I believe has to be right. I have family members who I understand with what they are saying, but I know some may not understand how I see and look at my Christianity. Juanita, I totally get it. I totally get it. And religion is just one of those things that a lot of times before we would open ourselves to hearing another's perspective to try to understand, we defend ours without hearing them. And I often say the same way I want people to hear my perspective, I need to give them the same courtesy and at least hear theirs. That's all. Doesn't mean that you have to agree, but at least educate yourself to something else other than what you know. Get outside of your box, hear and learn. So consider the perspective of other people. And then you start to reformulate your perspective, because that is when you take charge of how you see things. You educate yourself, take classes, travel, leave the comfort of your geographic region and travel, see places other than where you go all the time. Read more than just what you've been accustomed to reading. I love that, McDina. Seek first to understand. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. And then as you're reformulating your perspective, you'll learn how to articulate your perspective, because now it's your own, it's yours. And even if you don't necessarily reformulate your perspective to another way of seeing, you will have gone through the evaluation to say, this is why I believe what I believe, and I'm fine with how I believe this, but I am open to other people's perspective. And when you take that position, you are able to articulate your perspective without arguing and fussing about it. I'm just trying to help us tonight, you all. If you want to be a better person, a stronger person, a person who can look at things from a different vantage point, it's about learning how to shift your perspective. And we say that so many times. But again, tonight I just wanted us to engage in a conversation about how we do that. I may do some more reading and share some more tips the next time we're here. But I want us to really think about this, you all. Am I really open to changing my perspective? Am I really open to evaluating my perspective? Am I open to considering the perspective of other people if we want to bring peace and civility, or at least add peace and civility to humanity? It's about shifting our perspective. I wonder, when we become 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years old, are we so set in our ways that we're not even willing to see things a different way? And it's not so much that we're not even willing to see things a different way. Are we so set in our ways until we're not even open to hearing perspectives that don't look or sound like ours? Does that sound courteous? Does that sound gracious? Does that sound kind? Does that sound fair? Because thank you, someone put it in the chat. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to seek to understand and then to be understood. Hey, you all, I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. And as we engage in this whole conversation about how do we shift our perspective, I hope it has helped somebody. I hope it may have inspired. I'm not sure. It may have motivated. I'm not sure. But I think it may have challenged some of us. It may have challenged some of us to make sure that we are taking a look at how we see the world, how we see things, how we see certain issues, how we see certain conversations and certain topics. I want us to think about it. And I want us to at least try to shift our perspective, or at least be open to considering another's perspective. It can only help the world. It can only help the world to be a better place. Thank you all for this time. Let's continue doing what we do, you all. Let's keep building community. Let's keep maintaining connectivity. Keep your heads up. Keep your hopes up. You all stay safe, stay sane. Please know that from my heart to yours, there is and always will be so much love. Thank you all for being on this journey. Some of you have been on this journey with me for 3 years now. Thank you for that. And let's keep growing this community and tell people, come on, let's talk to Cutler. The man is talking about some stuff on that channel. Y'all just come on and get aboard and let's ride. Hey, I'll see you all next time. Good night. Take care.